A very warm welcome to everybody to our next session webinar in our series ExplorAsia, this time focusing on Japan. And we are very glad to have with us today two representatives of Nitto Denko Corporation, who will present, on the one hand, the organization, but also, and that is the core of the topic today, how the company works with startups on various levels. My name is Oliver Hasse. I'm Managing Director of INAM, and I'll be moderating as much as is necessary the session, and I'll be sharing some initial thoughts on or ideas on what INAM is and what the session is about. Before we get started, could I ask people to, and I see many have done so already, could I kindly ask people to put into their names also the organizations that they are representing or that they are from, so we know who we have on board. There might be a couple of late joiners. If they could be reminded, Taha or Gabby, via the chat to do likewise, that'd be fantastic. Then, without further much ado, I'd give it a go and quickly take you through the agenda as it is foreseen for this session. So as I said, I'll be saying 2 or 3 words about INAM and the work that we're doing, and then directly handing over to our partners from Nitto, who will then present, as I said, both Nitto and the way Nitto engages with startups, and we'll conclude with a Q&A session where you can ask and explore in greater detail the topics that we've touched upon. As I said before also, very glad to have Ana Lucia Valencia Penagos with us, who will be taking over the first part of the presentation, and Senna Plessers, who will be looking at the startup collaboration part. But now let me firstly explain to you and tell you a bit more about INAM. It's an organization based and born in Berlin, but globally active, that is focusing on bringing together smart minds around advanced materials and related innovation areas to help innovation in this space come to the market. To that end, since 2016, we've brought together corporates, small and medium enterprises, research institutions, investors, as well as lots and lots of startups to work on and work together, to collaborate, to bring this ecosystem to fruition. And since then, we've managed to build up an ecosystem that centered around our 3 programs that we're offering: 1 incubation program, the Advanced Materials Lab, and 2 acceleration programs, that's the Advanced Materials Competition, which we are running once a year. So basically, with these 3 programs, we are covering the life cycle of a startup from inception or even pre-founding to Series A. Why stop there? Because we think the most benefit we can have as an organization and as a network to startups in these early phases, once they are beyond Series A, they find their help from VCs, from corporate clients, from corporate partners, et cetera, that might be coming from the phase that we've been working with them, but that then is completely up to the startups to deal with. As you can see, we have a number of corporate members that are backing not only us, but also the startups that are either member or participants of our programs. We have on our side legal advisors that cover especially IP issues, but also the full deal cycle. So anything to do with the due diligence part of investments to the contractual arrangements that you would have facing a VC investment or even a business angel investment would be within their scope. We are having a number of investment partners, and this we're expanding on regularly, partners that cater for all the phases that we look at, i.e. from angel phase, early seed to Series A. Some of these have their specialism in the deep tech area. Some of them are a bit wider in terms of investment scope, but many startups find it very useful to link up with these guys. As said before, we also have direct links to research institutions and co-working spaces, especially research institutions, for not only getting new ideas that can end up as startups, or often end up as startups, but also in this particular year, most importantly, actually, to run our program Advanced Materials Lab, because we're using the lab facilities of Humboldt University. Last but not least, we also have our government entities, most particularly Berlin Partner, that is helping us and our startups in many respects, particularly those that want to set up office in Germany. They find a great helping hand with Berlin Partner. Finally, of course, we have startup members. At the moment, more than 80 members are startup members of our network, and that has been growing continuously over the last years. If we look at our, let's say, success rates, and the only thing that we're really measuring so far is the survival rate of the participants of our ATMACOM acceleration program, and there we are extremely happy and proud to say that we're exceeding survival rates of many other programs, meaning that 91% of the first 4 cohorts that we had have actually survived until this present day. These figures will be updated over the summer and will then include also the 2020 batch and adjust the earlier batches and the figures on that, but that is in the making. And if anyone's interested, drop me a line and we'll be sending out the figures once they are available. Now that it is from my side, I'm now very happy to hand over to Anna from Nitto to tell you a bit more about the company and what it does. Thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. So thank you very much to INAM for this invitation for Nitto to participate and to share with you how can we collaborate with the startups. So I will share my screen. Okay, I think you can see it. So yeah, just a short introduction about myself. I have been working at Nitto for almost 4 years. I started in R&D in Belgium as my background is a polymer science, and now I am part of the application engineering team or business development team, innovation team for Nitto EMEA. So I would like to just give you again an outline what we are going to present. I will introduce you Nitto as a company. Who are we? What do we do? What are our focus areas? How do we do innovation? And then my colleague Sene, he will explain how then startups can be engaged with Nitto, and then at the end we would be happy to answer your questions. So what is the Nitto Group? Yes, we are a Japanese multinational company. It was founded in 2018, so we already celebrated our first century. And what you see here is our innovation center in Ibaraki, Japan, which is called Innovas, and is where the corporate research and then new technologies are developed. Our company is, as I mentioned, was founded already in 1918. We are around 30,000 employees worldwide. We are around 101 companies worldwide. It means also manufacturing sites, research centers, also converting companies. And we have also a wide network of distributors of our products. We get around 6.4 billion euros in turnover worldwide from fiscal year 2019. So you can see here where we are located. We in the Americas region. We have around 16 companies, including South America, North America, Mexico, Brazil, the US. In Europe, we have 14 companies. I am now in Munich office where the business headquarters are. But as I mentioned, there is also a manufacturing site in Belgium and also R&D. And our EMEA offices are actually in Belgium. And other countries in Europe, of course, in Asia, we have a strong presence and around 51 companies, Japan and China and Korea, for example. Yes, for the EMEA region, since it's interesting for us, we have around 14 companies on 18 locations. We are present since 1967. We are around 1,600 employees with a turnover of 340 million euros. And this is our regional head office, is in Leuven in Belgium. We have manufacturing sites, as I mentioned, in Belgium, but also in Czech Republic, in Hungary, and in Turkey as well, and sales offices all around Europe. So the question is, what are our Nitto core technologies? So we are specialists in applied polymer technology. So from the lab, where we produce our products, we want to go and to give to our customers real and high quality products for their applications. So we are divided, let's say, in these 4 sub-technologies, which are adhesives. We really we design our adhesives, we polymerize the monomer, so we go from the first stage. We cover the whole process of developing an adhesive. And then we also rely on our advanced coating processes for manufacturing our products. It means, for example, reverse roll, gravure roll, or also a deep coating. Yes, we also rely on our polymer function. Oh, sorry, it was too fast. Polymer function control. So we design polymers and materials that we know are and are customized for our clients, for our customers. And we also rely on our polymer analysis and evaluation to ensure that the quality of the product is good, that is doing what it's supposed to do. So everything starts, okay, what is the job to be done? And then we start the development of new products. So we are actually, our all products portfolio can be divided in 5 functionalities. So first one is to permeate. So we allow some elements to pass through, but blocking others. Also to transfer, when we want to transfer or convey an element to one media to another. To adhere, so that we want to join different elements, different substrates, but also to protect. We offer different protection solutions, and also to block when we don't want certain elements or substance to come in certain elements or product or material. So how is our innovation, internal innovation goal? So we grow organically from our core technology, which are, as you saw already, adhesion and polymers. And for example, in the past, we got a request for a medical application. So we didn't have that. So we see, okay, how can we develop new products, for example, in new applications? So we started from this question, can we offer something on the medical field, for example? We were at that time producing electrical insulator adhesive tapes. And then from that technology of adhesive tape, we were able to develop a skin-friendly adhesive. So we took this core technology and we translated into a new application. So we were able then to enter a completely new market for Nitto. And this has developed in a very positive way to see, okay, now can we go to pharmaceutical markets? So more niche products. So we are now able, we also develop transdermal drug delivery patches, and now we are even going further on the manufacturing of polymer beds, for example. So this is our internal innovation, how we growing organically. And this organic growth has, which starts actually with asking, okay, what is the job to be done? When we want to develop something, what does the product needs to do? And we then select what is the function that it must fulfill. And then we look, okay, where in our core technologies can we move for the development, for creating new products? And this is the way that Nitto has grown a lot. In many different applications, we have masking tapes, we have NVH materials, surface protection films. For medical related, as you see, double-coated tape, we have membranes for air filtration, for water filtration, optical films, different kind of membranes. And yes, so this organic growth has, as you can see here, these are just different examples of our products. For example, filtration membranes that are used on Dyson vacuum devices, adhesive tapes, polarizer films, even flexible sensors, and this kind of applications. So we are talking of around 13,500 different products, which allow us to go in around 70 different global markets. So it's a really wide portfolio that Nitto is going. But we can group not only in the functionality of the material itself, of the product, but also in different areas. What are our main areas? We are really focused on care, mobility, living, and processing. And we are taking this to transform Nitto in Europe into a safe, comfortable, smart, and healthy company. And just to give you some examples of how our products are in these different areas, for example, in the care sector, we offer gentle to skin solutions, as I mentioned, for example, friendly skin adhesive. We health monitoring or demographics, for example, for the diapers, we produce these ears to attach the diapers and ensure that they are not sliding out from the children. In mobility, yeah, we are focusing on safe and comfortable transport. We offer solutions for to support lighter bodies, as we know the transformation in mobility is towards light body cars. So we are able to supply with material that can strengthen these components, and also on electrification in mobility. On living, for example, we provide protection for low E-glass. We also provide this air filtration membranes for having good quality air. And in processing, as I mentioned, we also have membranes to purification of water, and for different applications like oil and gas production or textile. So we want to enhance any fluid processes with our innovative filtration technologies. And of course, we are also very aware of how important is sustainability at Nitto. So that's why we are open and going into that direction. For example, in our R&D department, we are trying to go into non-organic solvent technology to have greener products. And also during our source, we really focus in our green procurement policy. And in our manufacturing, we are trying to be as green as possible. We have recently installed new solvent recovery facilities so that we are able to reuse solvent during manufacturing. And for example, we are also working on emulsion as water-based adhesives which are low VOC. Also in our transport, as I mentioned, we offer materials that can contribute to this transformation into lighter bodies, offering like a strengthening patches, for example, with our Nitto hard material. And here, sorry, I cannot see. And also for recycle, we are really pioneers in some depend on command technologies, so that at the end of the lifetime of some components, for example, in batteries, that a separation of parts can be done, and then recyclability can be also done properly. And we are also having solutions like, for example, anti-fouling paints and films for the marine industry. But actually, we are Nitto. You saw how we are growing organically, but we are also now moving into more open innovation, more inorganic growth. So we are going beyond our limits. We are also trying to find technologies that are of our interest, and then to see, okay, how can we collaborate? How can a synergy be created? So we are moving towards more also open innovation, and this is what this workshop is about, how Nitto can collaborate with the startups. And now I will give the word to my colleague, Sene. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. I will see if I can request control. It's maybe
okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Maybe also a quick introduction from myself. I'm Sene. I've been working for Nitto about 12 years now. I started actually in R&D, worked there for 1.5 years, then went to Japan for a small year, also in R&D, came back to Belgium, worked for 3 years in product management. And after those 3 years, I actually went to the US for business development. After those 3 years, I came back to Belgium, continued business development, and since April last year in 2021, I've been actually leading what we call the application engineering team, which is actually the new business development team. We're actually the team that actually has the first contacts with startups, so we see how we can collaborate and how we can make a connection to the different R&D teams within the Nitto Global Group, so that we can evaluate and see how we can continue certain partnerships. So what I will do today is I will explain a bit how Nitto works with startups. As I think Anna explained, and also Oliver, we're a Japanese company. It's a bit of a different approach than I would say with American companies or European companies. We're in general a bit more conservative, but I will explain you how we will do today. So hopefully, yeah. Okay, it works. Before we actually go into this, I think what is very important from Nitto EMEA side and Nitto globally, it's very important to know what are our strategic markets, because if you come with a solution to Nitto and it's not really strategic, then the chance, of course, of being of starting something is very small. So that's why I want to show you. If we talk about Nitto EMEA and globally, you see that we have a very high focus on, like Anna mentioned, mobility, but more specifically next generation mobility, where we look into how we can deliver materials for fuel cells, for batteries, how we can improve quality for ADAS applications, and etc. But we also look into see, okay, how can we create lower emission products? How can we increase safety? How can we increase recyclability or connectivity by utilizing our products? Another very important market is living market. Living is more considered as I would say the filtration area, but also building and construction, where we look to see, okay, how can we can help our customers reach their goals of low energy, increase safety by creating a cleaner air, increase connectivity, but again, also recycling is very important. Then another very important market for Nitto is the semiconductor markets, where they're really looking into yield improvement, process improvement, but also availability nowadays. So maybe also here recyclability could play a role. Here today, we're more in the front end, so we're also looking to see how we can move up into the back end to see how we can actually offer a full product. In semiconductor, this can either be materials, but also actually devices, what we call now devices, which are used to work with our materials so that we can actually help to innovate in that industry as well. And last but not least is the care industry. This involves everything going from the medical industry to the development of pharmaceuticals, which is a lot done in the US area, but also in Japan, to personal care products like diaper industry, feminine care, which is really focused here in Europe, where I think if you saw maybe the news, we acquired a couple of days of officially acquired the Mondi personal care division in order to expand our brand. But also here, connectivity, safety, and recycling is again very important. You see that overall in these strategic markets, there's an overall common goal which you want to reach, but this is very important for us or for you guys all to understand, and ladies, in order to work with Nitto. So if you look at the Nitto Corporation possibilities, there are actually several ways that you can work, that we can work with you. One, there's a funding opportunity. So Nitto globally has what we call a funding area where, sorry. I'm not sure what happened. Anna, can you? Yeah. Okay. There are several possibilities in working with Nitto, I would say. So one is a funding opportunity where we really look into, okay, we just want to provide a certain money. We have a fund available at Nitto globally, which we can utilize for this. This is mostly done when there's no very clear connection to Nitto, but we see an opportunity. This is where you say, okay, we want an X amount of money and we put it into strategic projects, which we feel that could be interesting in the future, but also where we see the disruptive technologies. This is really a direct request to the Nitto top management. So you will go directly to the CTO and CFO of the company to request the money, and then actually a specific fund will be made available out of the bigger money pot that is available. The second one is a joint development. I think everybody knows that, where Nitto and the startup works together in order to create something new, which could be interesting for a specific market. Here we start in general with a proof of concept. And once this is really positive, then actually this joint development will start. And then you actually get access to resources of Nitto, labs, people, but also money, for example, and you also get access to the Nitto business of the customer portfolio, which can help you to expand your business as well. And as mentioned, you can have certain funding available. If you do a joint development, that doesn't mean that we don't put anything, no money on the table, but this is really where Nitto and the startup are working together to make something novel. And this often goes via, I think, the teams like business development or R&D, where you go actually up to director level of top management who can also take decisions at their level as well. And the last one, which is not so common, is you have an expansion opportunity. So we evaluate the product, we see that there's an opportunity in the market, and we can actually place it next to our product portfolio so that we can promote and help you to introduce this into the market, and then in the future also can start some joint developments. Again, here, this doesn't mean that there's any funding available, but this is a different way of working where you say, okay, now we need specifically an X amount of money to continue the work, where there's no real, I would say, development purpose at that moment from Nitto. It's more than the money that will be made available to create your novel ID. This works. So how can you connect with Nitto? Of course, there's two ways that you can connect with Nitto. One, there's taking direct contact with Nitto. Then you go via the website and you actually go into a very general email address. This in general is a quite difficult approach because you just get put into the system and you don't connect to the right person immediately. So you need to find the person who is in general just an administrator, doesn't have the whole background at Nitto. he or she just needs to forward the email to somebody, and you need to hope that it gets into the right department. So this is normally a very long way, and as such, your email or your contact can actually get lost, and as such, it can be frustrating. So if you want to go and take direct contact, from our side, the advice is maybe visit exhibitions where you know that Nitto is present. Go to the platforms or talk to accelerator platforms like INAM, who knows Nitto now, and ask them to introduce you, and they will go immediately to the right people. As such, we don't have a lot of examples of direct contacts. Most of our requests actually come from Nitto, where we already see a clear market trend or a customer trend, and we don't have the right technology or product available, or we don't at that moment have the resources, which means that all our R&D resources are already occupied with specific projects which we don't want to put on hold. So then it could be an opportunity to work with a startup who can help us to develop a certain product. As such, what we do is then we launch a specific request into a certain platform, or we contact startups directly to see if they're interested to work with Nitto and a specific product. Examples like INAM, besides email, INAM is the MIT LP platform where we launched some questions and where we started to work around it. And another one is BandLabs, which I will show later on as well as an example, which is, I think, very interesting to know as well. But this is the way that you actually can connect with Nitto in order to work with them. So once you actually get in contact with Nitto, I think it's also very important from all the startups to understand, okay, how does Nitto work in this case? What does Nitto do in order to get somewhere? And this is what I would like to explain in the next slide, if it moves forward. Yeah. So here I present you a bit of the Nitto workflow. So hopefully, I don't know if you see my cursor. I'm trying to see if I can. Yeah. So you see here, once you come with a question, so we need to know if it's a strategic fit, which you saw in the beginning. If it's not, then yeah, for us this stuff, because then it makes no sense, I think, to work together, because we will waste Nitto's time, but also your time. But if this is positive, then the one thing that we will try to understand, one side from you, of course, based on your information, but also based on the market information that we have, is there really a market need? If we have the feeling that there's not really a market need, then for us, yeah, we will say, okay, this is not, we're not the right partner to work with because we don't really see it. But the moment these two things are actually, I would say, you can put it off your list, then you actually go into I think the interesting side, and then you can actually have three different ways. One, there's already some kind of Nitto development ongoing, which means that we have something similar in development, or we have a whole technology coding platform available where we can actually easily transfer your product. If that is the case, then we will start with a mutual NDA, like you see here. And then we actually have a chance to do a first discussion, talk to each other, explain a bit what we do and how we could help each other. And then the important step in this case is, okay, then Nitto will do a technical comparison. We will take your product and compare it to our existing similar product or development. And this needs to be really good. This needs to be good because if we see that it's not as explained, or we see some differences, or we see that our product at that moment is better, then the chance is rather high that this will stop. If it really is positive, then what we will do is move into a joint development agreement. And as such, we really are sitting together, okay, this is what we want to achieve in the next year or the year or two. And if this really goes well, then I think we move forward into a full funding opportunity where you could be part of we could start discussion, a merger or an acquisition. But I think what I really want to highlight also in the end is that this step is always a very important step with Nitto to convince Nitto to work with you. If you don't see a real Nitto development, so this is not something that we have in mind, but we do see a certain technology fit. For example, we work in filtration. We work with PTFE membranes, but there's a completely new technology available or development from a startup that does certain things as well as filtration. Then this could still be a very interesting technology fit. And if that is the case, then we again go into a mutual NDA. We do the first discussions. And once we have done that and we see, okay, this is interesting, then it's again very important to build that POC, the proof of concept, with your product. Need to evaluate it and see, okay, this is really looking interesting. If that's the case, then again, it's the same as above. Then we move into a joint development agreement, and we can start one project, two projects. In some cases, and some examples that I will show, it can actually go up to 4 projects. And once this really goes well, then I think the discussion will move forward, and then this funding opportunity, or again, an M&A, can be very important. And the last and not least, I think, when there's no really technology fit, so then we look into, okay, is this really disruptive? Yes. If that's the case, then we do again the same discussion. If it's not, then we see, okay, this is not, I think, what Nitto can do, then we stop this. But if it's yes, then we move into, I think, again, a very important factor for the startup is, okay, then we move into a business case preparation and the Nitto fit. And if that's the case, then you go into the Nitto fund, and then we give you a certain amount to develop your idea and to give certain updates as well. But I think what is very important to mention, and I will come back to that later on, is that this area is very important. This is where you need to convince Nitto to work with you. And this is where I think this is where we expect, from Nitto's side, we expect that startups will show something in order to really convince Nitto. That doesn't mean that Nitto won't put any resources available or a bit of money. But this is really where I think we believe that the startups need to take the ownership to convince the corporate like Nitto to work with them. So this is a very important aspect, because once you've done that, then I think the whole the future of what comes next will be a lot more easy. Okay. What I want to show you also a little bit is some examples, because of course we can talk a lot about certain ideas, but I think it's also very important to show you some interesting ideas of certain successes. Certain failures that we have seen, or which didn't move well. So one of them which you want to mention, and again, maybe you've seen it in the past months, is Bent Labs. Bent Labs is an American-based startup company, which actually is working in the sensor field, which makes a very flexible elastomeric sensor. And one of our Nitto employees, he saw them, and he contacted them and thought, okay, this could be very interesting. And as such, he said, okay, this is a real strategic fit, because it can be fit into next generation mobility. It can be used to monitor certain tires. It can be used to monitor people, but it can also be used inside of healthcare. So you can actually use it to monitor orthopedics, to see how the mobility of the flexibility is of certain of your knee, for example. So we really see this could be a strategic fit. So we said, okay, this is interesting. Let's see what the market need is. So we did some more investigation, and of course what you see is, especially in automotive, but also in healthcare, there's a lot of things ongoing into connectivity. They want to learn more about the car, but also about how people drive. They want to collect data so that they can improve their products, but also they want to increase safety, and this can also be done by actually implementing certain sensors. So we really see, okay, this is actually really, really interesting. It's a really strategic fit with our markets, but there's also a clear market need that needs to be solved. And there's also, I think, I would say, a certain material need that needs to be solved. So we said, okay, yes, let's move forward. Let's see if we have a Nitto development in this case. We don't have really I would say, a Nitto development. So this really needed to be a certain technology fit. And this is really the case, because if you look to what Bent Labs is doing, you see that it's a material science company. You can use it as a roll-to-roll process, which really fits into what Nitto is doing. So there's a real technology fit, where Nitto could offer value with their expertise, but also Bent Labs offers their value and their expertise. So we really went quite quickly into a technology on a mutual NDA, so that we can discuss further. And we really went into moving and building a POC. So what they did is they showed us some one-axis sensors and some several sensors. And we actually used, for example, the hand, and we started to test certain things. And this was really, really positive. They really showed us that this could work, that they can detect not only strain, but also torsion, which is very interesting. And as such, we said, okay, this is too interesting to do not involve. And we said, okay, let's move into a JDA, a joint development agreement. And out of this joint development agreement, we actually identified 2 projects within next generation mobility and 2 projects within healthcare. And in this discussion, we really are moving forward with certain OEMs and tiers, where we really say, okay, this is what we can offer, and where they say that we have the best solution as such. Based on these discussions, of course, and based on the progress, we actually went off Nitto move forward, and since a couple of weeks, we actually acquired Bent Labs as a company, and it's actually called now Nitto Bent Technologies, and it's now fully owned by Nitto. But this is really an example to show you that we do things with startups. Again, this is where you convince Nitto to work with them, and if you convince them, then there's really a lot of opportunity. If you look at the time scale, so the first contacts were actually made, I think, in beginning of 2019, and in the beginning of in the end of 2021, and beginning of 2022, we actually started the discussion of the exposition. So it actually can move rather quickly once you have Nitto fully on board. Another example is from the accelerator platform. I think here the biggest advantage is that there's no strategic fit needed and market needed anymore, because Nitto did all the work, and Nitto already did that investigation and actually saw a certain opportunity and a strategic fit, but we don't have, I would say, the right item already available. So at that moment, what we do is we go to an accelerator platform, or we contact certain startups directly, and we ask a specific question. This could be related to advanced battery materials, to see, okay, who has an advanced battery materials for thermal insulation, or this could be around filtration materials, where there's a clear need for more clean materials related to this. So we launched this question into the market, and then we get some feedback from several startups. I think about 15 startups came back to us, and out of them, I think about 2 or 3 were selected to further investigate. One of them, which is, I'm not showing the names, of course, we're now in a deeper discussion. We again look at the Nitto development. It was a filtration material, very interesting. It's not exactly what we do today, but there's a technology fit. It's again a material science what is done. It can be a roll-to-roll process, which is also very important for Nitto, and it's closely connected to filtration. So we said, okay, this is really a technology fit for Nitto. Let's start up the mutual NDA. And once we've done that, we started the discussion, start to learn more about the company, and we started to build some POC. So what they have done is they actually made several materials based on our request. So we said, okay, we have a need for specific HEPA materials. And as such, I started to develop that and actually prove that by also utilizing independent evaluation companies, so that they can prove that they are HEPA related. So far, this evaluation is ongoing, and we're now in discussion of a first project for GDA, and even some discussions are already starting to see if it could go into an M&A. But this is also a positive feedback that we see. Okay, again, a very interesting technology portfolio, an add-on on what we see of what we have today, and they could solve several issues in the market. And as such, we further look into this. Again, where you actually really get the interest of Nitto is, again, I would like to highlight, is this build of proof of concept. This is where you really need to convince Nitto to work with you. And this is where we expect some efforts from the startups. If you then have a stopped example, so not everything is, of course, positive. Not everything works. Again, we are very known when it comes to electronic materials. So we produce quite a lot of polarizers and ITO films, what we call Electrista. At a certain moment, one of our Nitto employees came in contact with a certain competitive material, and he saw a connection to next generation mobility and a certain market need like connectivity and data. So they asked us to develop it. This is more Nitto development, which is closely connected because it could be easily transferred to what we have available today. So we started the discussion, we have a mutual NDA, and then we started the tech comparison. But here we actually stopped for the main reason that after 3 months already, we saw that the info that was given from the startup was not as expected. Afterwards, they said, yeah, okay, but these were not our best samples, but of course, you only have one first impression, and if that's lost, then it's very difficult to convince Nitto again to start. So it's always very important to send your best samples so that you know that you make the best impression. Not everything works well, but if there's certain things, already 2 things that didn't match up with what has been said, then of course it will be more difficult. Afterwards, Nitto also did some more investigation to understand the progress over the past years, and we saw that, okay, they didn't make a lot of progress, so we decided to stop it. But again, what I would like to highlight here again is that this is the most important part where you need to convince Nitto. So if you then go to the next slide, this is just again a summary, the flow. And again, which I would like to stress, and I did it now a couple of times, this is the area where you can convince Nitto to work with. This is where we expect to input the input from the startup, so that you convince Nitto in order to work with. We are not in this stage. We won't invest hundreds of thousands of euros. This is where we believe, okay, it needs to be a give and take. We can give something, but you also need to give something in return, so that we can see that your technology is the one that we can work with. And once you have done this, then everything what comes after will be a lot easier, because you already did the difficult part, which is convincing Nitto. And as such, I think it's very important that you put a lot of you put time and effort in this one in order to convince to work with a company like Nitto. But I think in general, a lot of Japanese companies work in the same way. To give you a quick summary, so if we talk about how to engage with Nitto startups, so one thing which I would like to highlight, Nitto is very open and interested to engage with startups. I think in the past year, we started to realize that we can't do everything by ourselves. There are certain things that go better and quicker in a different world, like the startups, where they're more flexible, more agile, and they work a lot quicker. There's several collaboration opportunities. You can talk about sales expansion, but most of the times we look into a joint development agreement or a funding possibility. I think I would also like to highlight that Nitto is in general a bit more conservative if you compare it to the American and European companies. So in general, it will take a bit more time to convince or work with Nitto. And that's mainly related to the POC, or the stage where you do the technical assessment to really convince Nitto that you're the right company to work with. We will always look, of course, if you come to Nitto, we will always do a comparison between different technologies to understand who works best. That's why I think, again, it's a high engagement is expected from the startup, from the evaluation stage or the POC build, or in the business case preparation, to really start a collaboration. And once you have this, you have convinced management, and then resources and funds will actually be made available. And I think what is very important for all of you to understand is that you also need to find the right ambassador at Nitto. So you need to find somebody who really believes in you, who's willing to go that extra mile for you in order to bring you through the Nitto maze and to guide you through everything. And the advice here is that you best can get in contact with new business developers like Anna or myself, with a technical background, who in general have a better overview of what Nitto is doing, and also sometimes have a quicker understanding of what you could offer to Nitto. And as such, I think this will facilitate your discussion. But that ambassador is very important, because that ambassador, that Nitto employee, will pull you through the Nitto. He will help you to convince management. He will help you to make the right connections in order to convince. That's it from our side, from Nitto side, in regards to how we engage with startups and with Nitto. I don't know if there's any specific questions. If so, feel free to shoot, and then we will try to answer them as good as we can.
There is actually one question in the chat from Lucas of S3 Nano, and he asks, do you use any specific platform for these development research requests or open innovation projects?
No, not at this moment. We are looking into this, how we can do this, but we don't have a specific request. So the best way is to engage via the application engineering team, the new business development team, who can assess the technology, and then they can move it forward to the right team within the Nitto group. That team can be within EMEA, that can be within Japan. Quite often, Japan will be involved, because I think you will understand that the mother company has more resources and more equipment available. So quite often we will go to Japan for support, for evaluation, and etc.
Thanks for that. So over to the audience. Any more questions to Anna or Sene? You can either type them in the tab or in the chat, or raise your hand, or open your mic.
I have a question, Oliver and Senna. Thank you for the presentation. I'm Hagai from Superpolymer, a startup based in Israel. First of all, can you share this presentation afterwards, including your emails?
Yes, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so if if I understand correctly, is it true that the end game of Nitto at the end of the way, after having a successful screening process with the startup, is it to go to full acquisition?
No, not always. I would say it's quite often the case because, of course, you want to have, if you develop something together and it moves into a certain direction, you don't want that competition takes over, of course, and then at a certain moment they will need to see if they would like, I think, maybe not the full ownership, but maybe a majority share in order to make sure that they have the first call, of course. But I think quite often in this area, it will move into an acquisition because I think that also makes most sense in that case, where you're backed up by a bigger company, and that also Nitto wants to protect their technology, protect their and the startups company technology. But it's not always the case, I would say. But I would say 85% of the cases it will move into that direction.
Okay. I think that we have something very interesting to show you in polymers. And yeah. I love or to call you directly for your emails or to have introduction through INAM. Either way, I think yes, that we have something interesting.
No, yeah, up to you. If you want to involve Oliver, that's okay for us. We will share the presentation, and then you have our email address. I think the best thing is to involve Anna and myself in this discussion, and then we can continue discussion afterwards.
Great, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Haggai, and Senna for the answer, of course. Any more questions? Seems to have been a very self-explanatory presentation from Anna and Senna. Let me ask you one question. So we've been talking about the ways of collaboration, etc., etc. Would it be if you were a company that wanted to enter the Japanese market? Would Nitto be kind of a, let's call it, partner to move you there?
Yes, I think in general the Asian market, I would say, but of course we have a very big presence in Japan. Most likely what will happen, and that's also how Japanese in general Nitto, but I think most Japanese companies work. If there's a connection to a Japanese customer, this will always facilitate the whole discussion and will make it easier. So if you see that there is certain interest from already specific customers, then I think this will make the case only stronger, because if Japanese colleagues can talk, of course, in Japanese to specific customers, that will only make it easier. We also see it internally that if we have an interesting project in EMEA, but there's also a Japanese customer backing this up, that this discussion will go a lot easier. So in that case, yes, I think this will help.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe then another one from my side. When we talk M&A, usually when corporates acquire, particularly startups, or a majority stake anyways in startups, they usually continue to collaborate with the team for a number of years. So is that often happening in your cases also, or is there kind of a blueprint for the M&A process, startup M&A process, or is it kind of an individual?
Yeah, it depends on the startup and which field you're in, because the medical industry is where we do quite a lot of acquisitions we have done quite a lot of acquisitions in the past year. That's of course a different world than the I would say the more material science oriented. Normally what we have done, if we really work together, we quite often already have, I would say, a minority share. So we already work for quite a long time with a couple of years with the company, and we see some nice progress. once they go into the discussion of the full majority share or the full acquisition, then I think it's very important that, in this case, for example, Band Labs, that they can keep their identity. It's very important that you keep the startup out of the corporate, I would say the corporate world, because then they lose their flexibility. If you're immediately connected to Nitto, and you need to follow the same rules as what we need to do, then you lose a lot of flexibility. So one thing is that they need to be a bit of a separate company, reporting to Nitto, but have their own rules. And I think normally there's also some kind of rules that certain employees from the startup, that they stay at the company for a specific amount of period, so that at least that we can learn the technology, not that they leave, of course, after a month and then the whole technology is gone.
Thank you for that. I still don't see any raised hands from the audience, meaning that there don't seem to be any more questions. Maybe I think you hinted at it at the slide. Last question from my side.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Decision-making process. So from basically reaching out to you to arriving at some sort of decision how to proceed. I guess in kind of negative cases, and if it's in the early step, it's relatively fast, but when it comes to, let's assume it's a positive case, and it should come to a collaboration of whatever sort. How long, on average, or as a medium, whatever?
In the past, I would say it took rather long because of the conservative approach. We are starting to learn now that we learned now that we need to be quicker. I think with, for example, Band Labs, to the acquisition, I think it took about 2 years. But from the introduction to the joint developments, that took about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
So rather quickly. But again, it all depends on that phase where you need to convince Nitto. If that's really good, then everything can go rather quickly. What is important to mention that if we talk about minority shares or majority shares or an acquisition, in this case, we always need to involve Nitto Japan. This is not, according to our decision-maker rules, this is not something that EMEA can lead. It always needs to go via Japan. Certain investments can be done, but if you really talk about certain ownership in the company, then this always needs to go via. But normally, when you start to evaluate, this will always be done via Japan, as always involved.
Yeah. But you would probably be helping startups a bit to guide them through, let's say, the cultural specifics in pitching to Japanese executives.
That's where we can help, or where we will help. So we know now by learning how you need to present to Japanese management, because they will always ask a lot of questions, which sometimes can be frustrating. But that's the way they work. But what we do then is you first do the presentation to us, for example, then maybe to EMEA management, so that you learn that they will that you will get a lot of questions and that you will try to solve them in advance. What we also do is we send the presentation a couple of days in advance to top management, so that they have time to look at it, and then they can already ask some questions before you go into the meeting. That doesn't always happen, but they always have a chance to look into the presentation before you actually can present, which I think helps as well, because then you can prepare certain questions which might come in that meeting. But the good thing is, if you present to top management, that decision can actually be taken in half an hour. If they really are convinced, then they will just say, okay, yes, we go for it, and this is what you get. So
super. Thank you again. And having a last look at our participants, I don't see any raised hands. So last chance, if anybody has a question, now shoot.
I see a question, I think, from Lucas in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we are also interested in new raw materials. Sometimes we look and see if we can do certain things by ourselves, because sometimes certain raw materials are owned by or controlled by competitors. So yes, this is also something that we look into. Also, if you have new raw materials which have a certain green image, then of course this is also very of high interest. So yes, this is also something that we could look into. And then I think another question from Lucas. If we look into new production or process technologies as well. So either we look into new coating technologies, especially in Japan. What they normally do is they develop a product, and sometimes a completely new production or process technology is needed, and then they will look and reach out to see what could be offered. So also there, if you have certain process technologies, for example, maybe in additive manufacturing, where you think that you could help Nitto, or could give Nitto some interest, or you have a complete new way of coating, then of course we're interested to learn and to see what we can or what this can offer in our industry.
Okay. Thanks again. I think that answers these questions very well. Okay. Now I think we're really through with questions, more or less right on time.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank both of you, Anna and Senne, very, very much for this very, very detailed and therefore insightful presentation. I think yeah, many questions do not remain, because you've explained very well both of what Nitto is doing and how you collaborate with startups. So thank you very much. To the audience, if you have any further questions, please do reach out either to Senne or Anna directly, or of course to us, as always. We'll be distributing the presentation in due course, but I cannot say when. The session will also be available as for reviewing on our website, but that might actually take some time. So the send around of the presentation will be definitely before. Thanks again, everybody, for coming to our webinar today. And I hope to be hearing from you and seeing you, and hope that everything goes well with your respective businesses and projects. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. And
thank you very much, Oliver, for the invitation.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.